Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to Doc and the Poet. My name is Devin Porter, otherwise known as the Poet, and please allow me to introduce you to my partner in crime, Dr. Brooke Taylor, otherwise known as Doc. And so we did our introductory episode, and for this second episode, what we want to talk a little bit about is why Doc and the Poet. Where did we come up with that? And it's going to let us flesh out a little bit more to show you all a little bit more of our belief system. Yeah. And we were talking about this, but we need to earn your all's trust, and so we need to make sure that you all know as much as we can tell you about us and how we approach these issues. So, starting with that, why Doc and the Poet, Brooke? You want to tell us kind of where that came from?
Well, it came out of just, I think, good faith, good spirit, just Devin and I, the Poet, what we do share, I think, is an open mind and honestly an open heart. I think, I don't want to speak for you ever, I never would. We see things similar, not the same, but there is a shared, I think, empathy for, fellow mankind that's not a quick to find easy bucket or label that the toxic divide would want you to believe there has to be to have kind of a caring or a bleeding heart for others. I think we have an open mind when it comes to conversations and just intentional thought to understand important topics, fun topics, and no matter what, Devin and I, the Poet, we'll be having these conversations, but to really put ourselves out there, on our weekends with these fireside chats to open it and build this tribe, I think it truly was from the intent, how the conversation and the platform came into a YouTube channel was, I would say at the end of the day, just a message of hope and to bring unity out of a heart and a mind that's open and cares.
Yeah, and the idea of Doc and the Poet as a show is very broad. We're going to be talking about everything under the sun, and a lot of what we're going to be talking about is going to be issues where we find that there is divisiveness that maybe is not necessary.
Yes.
And so we're going to pick some of the low-hanging fruit early, and we're going to talk about some of those issues, and of course we're going to have a lot of fun too. And once in a while we're going to just do an episode that's just plain for fun. That is not about the toxic divide or kind of what we are trying to do with this creation of like Brooke says, a new tribe. Because I think what's happening to a lot of people today, and a lot of young people, is that you don't really feel like you belong on either side. You feel that you're being pigeonholed, and they go, well, if you believe this, then you're this. Or if you believe that, then you go in this group. And, by our very nature as human beings, we are tribal. And I think a lot of times, many of us have fallen into one of these two tribes because there's nowhere else to go. And so we want to create a third option and a third tribe, so to speak. And, like we were saying earlier, we want to let you all earn our trust, and in order to do that, then we need to explain to you what our core belief system is, and so that you can sort of make your own decisions, but at least you know how we're approaching these issues. And so for me, I'm going to touch on just a couple, and I think Brooke, you're going to want to touch on a couple too. For me personally, one really big issue for me is I like environmentalism, sustainable farming. Today we are sitting at my farm. My wife and I have been here for about maybe close to 7 years. And we'll tell you about it in a future episode, but we are having a heck of a lot of fun here building this farm to be an organic, sustainable way of producing food. And so, like I said, we'll talk about that in a future episode. I think we'll have some fun. Well, maybe we'll film an episode out in one of my fields, and we can have the donkeys come visit. So that's one. That's very near and dear to my heart, and I really care about the environment, and I care about our relationship with it. So, beyond that, I think another big driving core belief for me is that I wrote a book in 2014 that was published by a really cool publisher. It's called Prepper Press. The book was a fiction novel that was called After the Crumble. And what the crumble meant was the slow collapse of modern civilization. And ever since I was a kid, I've been fascinated by the rise and fall of ancient civilizations. Greece, Rome, Egypt, you can go back all the way to the Sumerians, and you study how these civilizations rise and fall. And one of my personal core beliefs is that we are in a declining civilization due to energy that's becoming harder to get, that's becoming more expensive, and the fact that we made things too complicated. One thing that you'll hear us say is increased complexity yields diminished returns. That's a mantra that I think we both believe. If you can keep it simple, you should. Of course, not always, right? Sometimes you're going to have to, add complexity. But those, I think, are two core beliefs that I want you all to understand. What would you say about yourself, Brooke? What would you say some of your beliefs are?
Well, I'll extend kind of your thought a little bit, I hope we do have a chance to show everyone your hobby farm. I think you could have a kind of a cash cow with the price of eggs right now. You know, when you look at just the chicken.
If you all want eggs, $20 a dozen.
And then
Yeah, I'll UPS them to you.
And then I hope you have a chance to see the library that we're sending in. I think Devin has a wonderful collection. But when it comes to kind of my personal interest, I would say national security. I joke, but I take it very seriously. At times I do feel like national security is my love language. The job that keeps food on my table and our lights on, I do wargaming specific to nuclear security. So I'm very much, when it comes to just kind of the big topics that touch our day-to-day life, when it comes to keeping our families and our children and our national defense safe, I care about that very much, as well as America's reputation in the world. You know, I'm someone that's very motivated. I value my friends. And so, you know, that's why I'm doing this with you. You know, friends in the community, very passionate about nurturing those relationships. You know, a topic that keeps me up at night is how do our friends around the world, you know, view America and the America spirit and just defense overall. You know, I'm passionate about, you know, they say I'm a mom, my son's very young, that this idea of, you know, mom brain or pregnancy brain, I feel like I've been in a perpetual state of just of parenting issues for the past probably 6 years and counting. And so
You're pretty sharp. I'd like to see Brooke without parent brain because
it never leaves you. I mean, that's why I have my phone. I mean, even this afternoon as we're filming, will it buzz? Will I get a call? Will I be needed?
Right,
and so it's just something that it is who you are. I think in hearing you talk about your issues, and as we build, you know, trust with you and get to know this tribe, you know, these are the things that are part of who we are. You know, it doesn't really turn off or
Right.
just turn on for
Right.
the camera. And
Right.
so it.
Well, you know, it's like we were saying is that, well, first of all, if that phone rings, this episode's over.
Yeah, we're done.
You know,
Bye.
that's it. But, you know, that's something that we really wanted to sort of get across to you, because, you know, we said, well, we're talking about these issues anyway. And we're having what we think are really interesting conversations. And so we kind of just want to invite you all in, like your friends sitting there having a conversation with us. And one thing that's going to be important to us is as we build an audience, is that we want to build a dialogue with you all, because we're going to need your help to grow this. And of course, we're going to ask you to share and like and subscribe and do all those great things. But if we provide a good ideology and a good belief system that's not just political, it's also cultural, then we really hope that we can create this new tribe, you know, and it's a new flag. And when we're talking to other people, you're not, what was the old Simpsons episode? There was this funny thing, and there was two evil aliens that had somehow figured out how to run for president, and one was a Democrat and the other was a Republican, and these terrible, you know, brain-eating aliens, and everyone was like, oh, I think I'm going to vote for a third party. And they go, well, you're going to, you know, waste your vote, you know, and it was sort of this funny thing, because it's like, we have these two brain-eating aliens, and those were only two choices, you know, so we want to create a third option. We want to create something that we're not going to feel pigeonholed like I think we have been, and I'm hoping that our audience agrees, and we're not looking to convert anybody from the right, we're not looking to convert anybody from the left. We want the people that are like us, that are already there and are sitting here going, what is going on? There's slings and arrows flying back and forth, and all we want to do is find practical solutions that allow everyone to have a seat at the table and allow everyone to have a fair shake.
And it is. I mean, it's a conversation. It's to take the time to sit down, to stop, to think. And honestly, I mean, these are hard issues. There are hard topics that we'll be exploring that we want to hear from you on. I think every Saturday we're just asking for 10 minutes. And sometimes, even as we've talked about these over the years, we'll leave with a headache but a smile, right? You can talk about serious things and laugh about it and still be friends at the end of the day. And so we're not here for, you know, conversion. Right. We're here with conviction. We care about our friends and our family, I think, the country, and just building this tribe of community for other people that maybe feel like you are being divided out of the conversation, to say you're not. You can have a home here with us.
Right, in ways that we don't have to be.
Yeah.
You know, so that's what we intend to do. You know, we're not adding our voices to the existing conversation. We're creating a new one.
Yes.
And it's not a debate.
No.
We want a dialogue. We want a conversation that is being held in good faith. And now, pursuant to what we said, we're going to keep these videos relatively short. I think we're about at time, and so I think what I'll say for today is thank you very much for joining us again. We really appreciate it more than you know, and we look forward to talking to you a little bit more in the future. And thanks, and please like and subscribe and share and shout it from the rooftops.
And tell your
everybody.
friends.
Yeah, tell your friends. So thank you for joining us, and have a great day, everybody.
See you next